The folding table was in the middle of the bridge, 6:47 in the morning. My F-350 loaded with feed, my coffee still hot in the cup holder, and a card table blocking the only bridge between my new land and the rest of the county. A woman in a pastel polo shirt stood behind it with a clipboard, waving me down like she was running a checkpoint in a war zone. I eased to a stop. She walked up to my window, smiling the way people smile right before they ruin your morning. "Good morning, sir. I'm Karen Whitaker, president of the Whitestone Creek HOA. This bridge belongs to the community. I'll need $75 for a bridge use permit before I can let you through." I looked at her. I looked at the table. I looked at the hand-painted sign, HOA Bridge, resident permit required. Then I looked at the woman on my passenger side, who was already reaching through my open window with a laminated blue sticker in her hand, pressing it flat onto my windshield without asking. Whitestone Creek, resident lot 47. She just tagged my truck like it was cattle. A man in a black hoodie, HOA security, printed across the chest in peeling white letters, leaned his hip against my hood. His boots scuffed the bumper. He grinned at me like he'd been waiting for this. "Ma'am," I said. "I'm not in your HOA." Her smile widened. "Oh, I know, sweetheart. That's exactly why you have to pay. Outsiders pay more." Karen lifted her phone and photographed my license plate. "For our records, cross this bridge again without a permit, and I'm calling 911 for trespassing on community property." I kept both hands on the wheel and kept my face still. 30 years of reading angry people across a conference table had taught me one thing. The loudest person in the room is almost never the one holding the leverage. She didn't know that yet. I wasn't going to be the one to tell her. 2 pickups waited in line behind me, both driven by men I'd never met. Neither one looked up. Both had that quiet, beaten-down expression of a person who'd been charged this toll before and had decided a long time ago it was cheaper to pay than to argue. One of them, a heavy-set man in a seed company cap, stared at his steering wheel like it was the only safe thing in the world. That's what got me, not the table, not the sticker. Those 2 men, grown men, going still and small in their own trucks, because a woman with a clipboard had decided she owned the road. I pulled my wallet out of my back pocket. I counted out $75 in 20s and a 5, and handed it through the window without a word. Karen beamed. She tore a page off a yellow receipt pad, the kind you buy at a grocery store, and scribbled on it in ballpoint pen. "Received $75. Bridge use permit, K. Whitaker." She handed it to me like it was a diploma. I folded the receipt in half. I put it in my glove box. I drove across my own bridge and didn't know it yet. In my rearview mirror, I watched her high-five her son. She actually high-fived him like they'd scored a touchdown, like they'd just taken $75 off a stranger, and the stranger had earned it for being born in the wrong zip code. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I didn't call anyone. That's not how I'm built. I spent 30 years in rooms where people thought yelling was a strategy, and I watched every single one of them lose to the quiet guy with the paperwork. What I did instead was something Karen Whitaker wouldn't understand for another 6 weeks. I remembered the color of the sticker. I remembered the make of her son's hoodie. I remembered the exact phrasing, "This bridge belongs to the community," and the way she'd said it like it was scripture. I remembered the handwriting on the receipt, the yellow of the receipt book, the hand-painted sign, the license plate photograph. I remembered the 2 men in the trucks behind me who'd been paying this woman for God knows how long. And I remembered something else sitting, unopened, on my kitchen table 3 miles away. A manila envelope from the title company, 28 pages of deed documents and plat surveys I hadn't yet read because I'd spent the week fixing a barn roof instead. She had no idea she just set up a toll booth on a bridge that wasn't hers. She had no idea the man she'd charged $75 had signed a deed the week before that he hadn't finished reading. And she had no idea that every word out of her mouth this morning, "community property, resident permit, outsiders pay more," had been recorded by the dash cam I installed in my truck the day I retired from the federal government. I drove the 3 miles to my own gate. I parked. I sat there with the engine off and the laminated blue sticker glowing on my windshield like a bruise. I'd bought 5,000 acres the week before. I hadn't opened page 4 of the plat map. I had no idea the HOAs only way home ran right through it. The manila envelope was still sitting on my kitchen table when I got home. I walked past it. I didn't even take the sticker off the windshield. I went out to the barn, fed the 3 horses I'd inherited with the property, and spent 40 minutes repairing a stretch of barbed wire that coyotes had been ducking under. That's how I work. When something knocks me off center, I put my hands on a physical problem until my head clears. Karen Whitaker had knocked me off center, so I fixed a fence. My name is Ray Holloway. I was 52 years old, 6 weeks into retirement, 4 weeks into being a widower's kind of alone, but used to it, and 3 weeks into owning 5,000 acres of rolling pasture I'd bought for 40 cents on the dollar from a rushed estate sale. I'd spent 30 years in the federal government reading the kind of paperwork most people throw in a drawer. I retired with a decent pension, my wife's life insurance, and a promise I'd made to her on her last good afternoon. Buy the ranch, build the barns, get some peace. I was trying. The ranch part was done. The peace part was apparently going to take some negotiating. I drove into Cedar Hollow that afternoon for nails and feed. On the way back, I pulled into Mr. Alderman's driveway. Alderman was 78, ran 300 head on the property bordering mine to the east, and had waved me over on the fence line my second day on the land. He told me to come by whenever, so I did. He was on the porch shelling pecans into a metal bowl. He looked up, took one look at my face, and started laughing before I said a word. "So, you met Ms. Whitaker yet?" I sat down in the other rocking chair. She charged me $75 at a card table to cross the bridge this morning. Alderman laughed so hard he had to set the bowl down. "Lord, she's still doing that? You knew about this? Everybody knows about it. Nobody does anything." He cracked a pecan. Karen Whitaker, president of that HOA going on 11 years now. Her father-in-law, old man Whitaker, he built that whole subdivision back in 96 houses. He's the one threw that bridge up. Built it well. Alderman grinned. Built it cheap. Concrete and I-beams and some rebar he bought at auction. Always figured it was sitting half on somebody else's dirt. But back then, the land was owned by a trust out of Dallas that never sent anybody to check. He shrugged. Nobody ever checked. I filed that one away. I didn't ask more. I've learned the best information you ever get is the information somebody volunteers without knowing it matters. 11 years, I said, unopposed. She fined the last man who tried to run against her. Something about his Christmas lights being non-compliant, warm white. Cost him $400. He dropped out. I thanked him and drove home. The manila envelope was still on the table. I still didn't open it. Some part of me was still in that morning, still hearing the 2 men in the pickups behind me go quiet. And I didn't want to mix that feeling up with paperwork. There's a reason lawyers tell you not to read a contract when you're angry. So, I made dinner. I ate it alone at the kitchen table right next to the envelope. And when the sun went down, I went out to the porch with a whiskey and watched the pasture turn blue. Headlights came up my drive. I knew before the car stopped who it was. A silver SUV. The kind driven by women who call themselves girl bosses on their Christmas cards. Karen Whitaker got out carrying a clipboard and a stapled document wearing the same embroidered polo she'd had on that morning, as if she'd forgotten to take the uniform off. I didn't stand up. "Mr. Holloway," she said it like a teacher calling a kid to the front of the room. "I wanted to come by personally to welcome you to the neighborhood and to discuss a few items of non-compliance I noticed. On the drive-in, ma'am, I'm not in your neighborhood," she smiled. The same smile from the bridge. 6 hours later, fresh polish on it, well, that's actually what I wanted to talk about. She walked up onto my porch without being invited. She set the stapled document on the railing. Whitestone Creek Homeowner, Neighborly Conduct Agreement, 12 pages. A signature line at the bottom of page 12 with my name already typed in. "Your fence," she said, pointing vaguely toward the north pasture. "It's painted a natural cedar tone. Our community aesthetic standard is Whitestone tan. I can give you the paint code. We'd need it repainted within 30 days. That fence is on my land, yes, but it's visible from Lot 47. I don't care about Lot 47, also," she continued as if I hadn't spoken. "Your cattle are visible from a resident's kitchen window. That's unacceptable per Section 4.3 of our community standards. I looked at her for a long moment. Ma'am, my fence is on my property. My cattle are on my property. Your community standards don't apply to me. She tilted her head, smiled wider, and said the sentence that 6 weeks later, I would hear my lawyer read out loud in a courtroom. Honey, if you use our bridge, you're in our HOA enough. I didn't answer. I just watched her. She took that silence as victory. She pulled out a second document, a notice of non-compliance, $250 payable within 7 days, and taped it to my porch post with a piece of blue painter's tape she produced from her pocket like a magician. 7 days, Mr. Holloway. After that it compounds, and if it goes to lean well. She smiled that smile. You wouldn't want that. She walked back to her SUV. She drove off. The tail lights made 2 red dots going down my gravel drive, and then they were gone, and I was alone with the sound of crickets, and a $250 fine taped to a post on a house that was nowhere near her jurisdiction. I sat there a long time. I'd been yelled at by 2-star generals. A clipboard didn't scare me, but that envelope on my kitchen table, the one with the deed I hadn't read, was starting to feel heavier every time I walked past it. 4 days went by without a word from her. I spent them doing ranch work. I replaced 2 rotted porch boards. I ran a water line out to the south pasture. I did not paint my fence whitestone tan. I did not move my cattle out of sight of lot 47. I did not sign the neighborly conduct agreement. I did not pay the $250. I also did not open the manila envelope, not out of fear, out of discipline. I'd spent enough years reading paperwork for a living to know the worst thing you can do with a document is read it. Angry. You missed the one clause that matters. On the 5th morning, I needed groceries. I drove down my gravel drive, turned onto the county road, and came around the bend to the bridge. She'd raised the stakes. There was no folding table this time. There was an orange and white construction barrier, the heavy plastic kind the highway department uses, dragged across both lanes of the bridge. A hand-painted plywood sign was propped against it in block letters. I could read from 30 yards out. HOA residents only, outsiders, $75 bridge fee or turn around. I stopped. I put the truck in park. I turned my dash cam toward the barrier and let it run. Karen came out from behind a parked SUV on the far side, clipboard in hand, same polo. Her son was leaning on a pickup a few feet behind her, arms crossed, wearing the HOA security hoodie like it was a uniform he'd earned. She walked right up to my window. Mr. Holloway, good morning. You still owe $250 for the fence violation. Until that's paid, you do not have bridge access. I kept my hands on the wheel. Ma'am, you can't deny me access to the only road off my own land. It's not a road. It's an HOA-maintained private bridge. It's the only way in or out. That's not my problem. Pay the fine or turn around. Ma'am, step back from my truck. She didn't. She leaned closer. One more word, and I'm calling 911. Then call 911. She blinked. That wasn't the response she'd been rehearsing. For half a second, the smile cracked, and I saw what was underneath it. A woman who'd run this play 100 times and never had anyone say, yes, please, she recovered. She pulled out her phone. She actually dialed. I kept the dash cam running. I took my phone off the dash, opened the voice memo app, and started a second recording. Belt and suspenders, yes 911. I have a trespasser on community property refusing to leave. He's threatening residents. Please send a deputy immediately. 9 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser came up the county road from the north. Lights on but no siren. Deputy Morales got out, mid-30s, short haircut, the kind of deputy who'd rather write a warning than a citation. He took one look at the orange barrier and the plywood sign, and I watched his face do the small, controlled thing a professional's face does when he realizes the call he just responded to is not going to be what dispatch told him. Karen was already talking. Loud, pointing at me, describing threats I hadn't made. Her son chimed in from behind her, backing up every word. Morales let her finish. Then he turned to me, so your side. Good morning, deputy. My name is Ray Holloway. I bought the property on the other side of this bridge 3 weeks ago. This woman blocked the bridge, demanded $75 last week to let me cross, and is blocking it again today. I have dashcam footage of both incidents. I have the handwritten receipt she gave me for the first toll. I have her on my recorder, just now telling me the bridge is HOA property, and I'm not allowed to cross my own driveway. Morales held out his hand. May I see? I handed him my phone with the dashcam queued up. I handed him the yellow slip of paper from my glove box. Received $75, bridge use permit K. Whitaker. He looked at it. He watched 40 seconds of the footage. He looked at the orange barrier. He looked at Karen. His body cam was running the whole time. I could see the small red dot on his chest. Miss Whitaker, deputy. This man is Miss Whitaker. Is this bridge on land deeded to the HOA? It's been the community's bridge for 15 years. That's not what I asked. Is there a recorded easement or deed showing the HOA owns this structure or the land underneath it? Her mouth opened, opened again. We've always maintained it. Morales nodded slowly. Ma'am, I'm going to tell you something once. Unauthorized tolls on a contested ownership structure could rise to extortion under state law. Blocking a roadway somebody uses for ingress and egress can get into criminal territory real fast. You're going to move that barrier. You're going to let this man pass, and you are not going to collect another dollar from anyone at this bridge until you can show a deputy a deed. You can't. I can ma'am and I am. Her son shoved off the pickup and stepped forward. This is our Morales raised one finger. Son, stop talking. He stopped talking. Karen stared at me. Her face had gone the specific shade of red that people get when their authority has been publicly removed. And they know. There's an audience. 2 cars had stopped on the residence side of the bridge to watch. A woman with a stroller was filming on her phone from the sidewalk. Morales turned to me. Mr. Holloway, I'd recommend you file a formal complaint at the station this week. Bring that footage. Bring that receipt. This is going in my report either way. Yes, sir. Thank you, he nodded. Drive safe. I rolled up my window. I put the truck in gear. I eased around the orange barrier. As I passed Corinne, she found her voice again. You think you're smart, she shouted, walking alongside my truck now. Her polo coming untucked. Her clipboard shaking in her hand. I'm filing a lien on your property for that $250. You'll be homeless by Christmas, Mr. Holloway. You hear me? Homeless by Christmas. I didn't respond. I didn't speed up. I drove across the bridge at exactly the posted speed limit, and the woman with the stroller caught every word of Karen's threat on her phone. I came home. I put the groceries away. Then I sat down at the kitchen table. I poured a small whiskey. I didn't drink it. I just set it next to the envelope, so my hands had something to do besides shake, because they had started shaking a little, not from fear, but from that other thing. The feeling you get when you realize a situation has just tipped from annoying into serious. I opened the envelope, 28 pages, crisp title paper, plat map folded into the back. I spread it across the whole kitchen table. I clicked on the lamp and leaned over it. The boundary of my 5,000 acres ran in a long, irregular shape, with the creek cutting diagonally through the southwest quadrant. A thin black line crossed the creek labeled in small surveyor's font. Whitestone Creek Bridge concrete and steel 48-foot span. The line was inside my boundary, not on the edge, not straddling it inside. I read that line 4 times before I believed what I was seeing. I sat back in my chair. I looked at the whiskey. I looked at the plat map again at the thin black line, sitting a full 60 feet inside the red surveyor's line that marked the edge of my property. Karen Whitaker had charged me $75 to cross my own bridge. Karen Whitaker had just threatened in front of a sheriff's deputy and a woman with a stroller to put a lien on my house over a fence violation on my land. Karen Whitaker had been running a toll booth for 15 years on a structure she did not own on land that was not hers, against 96 families who had no other way home. I reached for the whiskey, and this time I drank it. Then I picked up my phone, and I called a real estate attorney. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was worried, because I was reading. I spread the plat map across the kitchen table, and I went through it the way I'd gone through 30 years of federal paperwork, slowly, with a ruler, with a pencil, with the light turned up. I traced every boundary. I measured the bridge footprint against the scale in the corner. I compared the plat to the meets and bounds description on page 2 of the deed. I pulled up the County Geese parcel viewer on my laptop and overlaid the plat onto the satellite image. By 1:00 in the morning, I was sure the bridge wasn't near my property. The bridge wasn't on my property line. The bridge was inside my property 60 feet clear of the nearest boundary on both sides of the creek. The parcel number on the tax record matched my parcel. The bridge footprint was flagged as a taxable improvement, and I had a folder of receipts showing the prior owner, and now me, had been paying property tax on that improvement for 15 straight years. The Whitestone Creek HOA had never paid a cent on it. Not tax, not insurance, not a surveyor's fee. They just started using it. At 8:00 the next morning, I called Paula Reyes, the real estate attorney Mr. Alderman had recommended to me the week before. Retired from a Dallas firm to do easy work for real people. She answered on the second ring. Ray Holloway, Alderman's friend. Yes, ma'am. I think I have a situation, tell me. I told her everything. The folding table, the $75, the sticker, the fence notice, the 911 call, the plat map, the parcel number, the 15 years of unchallenged use. There was a pause on the other end of the line, so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Paula said, very quietly, Ray, email me that plat and the deed this morning. Already sent. Give me an hour. She called back in 40 minutes. I put her on speaker and sat at the kitchen table with a fresh pot of coffee. Okay, Ray. Here's the plain English. You don't just own the land near the bridge. You own the bridge. There is no recorded easement in this county, granting the HOA access to that structure or the parcel it sits on. None. I pulled the full title chain back to the 1970s. The previous landowner never granted one. The HOA never filed for one. Old man Whitaker, I see his name on the original subdivision plat. He built the bridge on land that wasn't his, and he never bothered to formalize it. He just assumed a rural trust out of Dallas wouldn't notice. Nobody ever checked. Nobody ever checked. In this state, an easement has to be in writing and recorded. Verbal, we've always used, it doesn't count unless the user filed a prescriptive easement suit inside a certain window. They never did. Paula exhaled, legally, Ray. Every time that woman drove across that bridge, she was trespassing. Every time a Whitestone Creek resident used it, they were trespassing. For 15 years, I sat with that. I didn't feel triumph. I felt the particular cold stillness you feel when you realize the other side has been playing checkers and you're holding a chess clock. Paula, 3 questions, go. Can I legally block the bridge? Yes. Can I charge them to cross it? Yes. Toll it, lease it. Fence it off? Your choice. Can I sue them for 15 years of unauthorized use, and for the fence fine and for the lien she just threatened? Trespass. Unjust enrichment. Slander of title the second she files. Possibly extortion on the toll collection. Clean sweep. I looked out the window. The sun was coming up over the pasture. Everything gold. One more question. What should I do? Paula was quiet for a beat. Ray, if I were your lawyer, and I'd like to be, my advice is this. Do not block the bridge. Do not post signs. Do not tell the HOA what you know. Let her keep escalating. She's already threatened a lien. She's already called 911 on you once. She's going to do something dumber. Every time she does something dumber, her exposure gets bigger and your damages get bigger. Let her build the case for us. You're telling me to wait. I'm telling you to let her finish digging. She's at 15 FT deep. She's going to keep going. And if she hurts somebody, we add that to the complaint. But Ray, listen to me. Don't retaliate. Don't shut the bridge. Don't cut anybody off. Not because we can't, because a judge will want to see that you behaved like a grown-up, while she behaved like a clipboard dictator. The contrast is what wins, understood. I'll draft a title chain opinion letter today. Notarized and ready. My paralegal will start pulling HOA meeting minutes and the county recording index. We're building a shelf, Ray. She fills it up for us. Paula, yeah, thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when she's crying. I hung up. Then I did something I hadn't done since I got to this property. I started a folder. Plain manila, black marker on the tab. Whitestone Creek exhibits. I started dropping things into it in the order I'd collected them. The yellow toll receipt, a dash cam still of the folding table, a photograph of the notice of noncompliance on my porch post, A screenshot of the HOA website calling the bridge our community entrance. 15 years of tax records showing the bridge taxed to my land. A certified copy of the deed and plat. The full 911-cam. And a request I filed that afternoon for Deputy Morale's body cam. Footage. 9 items before dinner. I didn't file a lawsuit. I didn't send a cease and desist. I didn't call Karen. I didn't answer when she emailed me that afternoon demanding the $250 by Friday. I just kept filling the folder. That evening, Alderman came by. I told him, without drama, what the plat said. He listened. Then he started laughing the wheeze laugh a 78-year-old man gets when he's trying not to fall out of a porch chair. Ray, tell me you're not joking. Certified plat. Paula Reyes confirmed it this morning. Oh Lord, that woman. For 15 years. He shook his head. You need me to say that out loud in a courtroom. You just point. I will stand up, and I will tell a judge everything I've watched her do to that neighborhood. I might take you up on that. You will take me up on that? He stood. You got a plan. Paula's plan. Let her keep digging. Good plan. He started down the steps. At the bottom, he turned back. 11 years she's been charging that toll under her name. 15 with her father-in-law before her. 11 years of dollars, 75 tolls off anybody who looked like they couldn't fight back. He shook his head. She's about to learn what my land actually covers. He drove off. I walked my north fence line at dusk with a cigar in one hand. I didn't put up a sign. I didn't call anyone. I just walked my line quietly, the way a man walks his own land. She'd filed a notice on my fence, I thought. She was about to find out what my fence was attached to. Karen Whittaker Doug. She filed the lien 3 days later. Paula called me from her car, laughing the way lawyers laugh when a case just handed them a gift. Ray, the original $250 plus $1,200 in administrative compounding fees. Total lien $1,450. Filed this morning at the courthouse under HOA corporate name. That's a lien on my house. That's a lien on your house. She has no legal basis to file on a property. She has no jurisdiction over for a fine she has. No authority to assess. Ray, she just gift-wrapped us a slander of title claim. Keep the paperwork. I hung up and drove out to check my fence line. The gate chain had been cut, not damaged cut. Clean bolt cutter bite. The two halves hanging on either side of the gate like a pried open mouth. A white Ford F-250 with an HOA logo magnetic placard was parked 30 yards inside my property. 2 men in reflective vests were clearing brush along the creek. I walked up slowly. I did not raise my voice. Gentlemen, what are you doing on my property? The older one looked up. HOA grounds maintenance. Clearing the community entrance. This isn't the community entrance. This is private land. You're 120 FT past the bridge. He pulled out a work order. Signed by the board president. Clear the approaches both sides 50 YD out, sir. I don't care what the work order says. You cut a gate chain to get in here. You can leave now and we forget the chain. Or you can stay and I call Deputy Morales, who already has a folder on this HOA. And you explain why you're running a chainsaw on a stranger's land. They left. On the way out, the younger one kicked over the pink flag surveyor stake I'd set on the boundary. Deliberate. Looked at me while he did it. I filmed that too. That weekend, the HOA ran an approved brush burn on their side of the bridge. I smelled the smoke around 2:00 in the afternoon. The wind had been southerly all morning. By 4:00, it shifted northwest, and the fire jumped the creek. It burned 3 acres of my south pasture before the volunteer fire department contained it at a stretch of fence. An oak tree that had been there since before the Civil War gone. The county fire marshal walked the burn line with me on Monday. The burn crew turned out to be Karen's son and 2 friends. None certified for open burning. Working off a permit Karen had signed on HOA letterhead that had no county standing. The marshal wrote it up as negligent. Official report cited HOA as source. I added the fire report to the folder. Then Karen did the thing that, looking back, was the moment she stopped being a nuisance and became a defendant. She posted on Facebook. The HOA community page had 1,200 followers. She posted a photo of my truck taken from her own bridge stakeout, with a caption I'll give you word for word because I screenshotted it before she could edit. Residents, please be on alert. The outsider who bought the old Murphy Ranch is actively trying to steal our community bridge. If he succeeds, our home values collapse and our children can't get to school. Emergency HOA meeting Tuesday, 7:00 p.m. All residents must attend. 27 comments in the first hour. String him up. Carpetbagger, Karen, we stand with you. Paula called within 90 minutes. Ray, tell me you have the screenshot. 3 angles timestamped. Comments included. Public defamation plus a second slander of title. She's going to regret Tuesday. I'm going Tuesday. Ray, Paula, I'm going. I won't reveal the deed. I'll sit in the back. I'll listen. And at the right moment, I'll ask her one question in front of 96 households and the stenographer she always hires to make it feel official. Pause. What's the question? Where's the easement? She laughed one short, surprised laugh, okay. One question. Then you leave. Don't engage. Don't gloat. Don't show the deed. Don't show the deed. Thursday morning, I'll have a listen county court. Emergency hearing on the lien. Full countersuit filed by then trespass, slander defamation, negligent burn, unjust enrichment on 15 years of tolls. I hung up. I sat on the porch until the sun went down. Then a car came up my drive. Not a silver SUV, a slow sedan with one headlight dimmer than the other. A woman got out mid-70s, white cardigan. She climbed my porch steps, one hand on the rail, the other clutching a casserole dish wrapped in a kitchen towel. Mr. Holloway, I'm Edith Ellison. I live at 214 Whitestone Lane. Mom, I'm not supposed to be here. Karen emailed this morning saying any resident who speaks to you will be fined $500 for undermining board authority. I came anyway. I brought a chicken and rice. I took the casserole, please sit down. She sat on the edge of the rocker like she might bolt. Her hands shook. My husband Harold is on dialysis 3 times a week. Without that bridge, he can't get to his appointments. I heard what Karen said on Facebook that you're going to close the bridge. Mr. Holloway, if you close the bridge, Harold will die. I sat down across from her. I put my hands flat on my knees so she could see them. Mrs. Ellison, I am not closing the bridge. I am not charging tolls. I am not keeping anyone from going to a doctor or a school or a pharmacy. That bridge is going to stay open for every single person in your neighborhood. You have my word. Her eyes filled. But Karen says a lot of things ma'am. I am not Karen. She sat with that, then, very quietly, she's been doing this for years. She fined the Kowalski boy $300 for painting his mailbox red. She made the Petersons take down a ramp they built for their daughter's wheelchair because it wasn't aesthetically approved. Nobody fights her because the bridge. We're all scared of the bridge. She uses it like a leash. I know ma'am. Then why are you really going to the meeting Tuesday? I looked at her, I waited. Then I told her the closest thing to the truth I could give her without showing my hand. Because I'm not going to close your bridge, Mrs. Ellison. I'm going to close her HOA. She reached across the porch and took my hand. Her hand was cold and paper-thin. She squeezed hard. Harold will sleep tonight, she said. First time in a week. She left the casserole. She drove off slowly, the one good headlight pointing her home. I sat on the porch a long time after that. I'd spent a career staying calm, staying measured, staying in my lane. I'd been trained not to take things personally, not to escalate, not to let one bad actor pull me into her rhythm. But there's a line. Mrs. Ellison's hand on mine was the line. I went inside and I called Paula. File everything tonight, all of it, and get me on the agenda for Tuesday's meeting officially in writing. So she can't say I crashed. On it, Paula, yeah. She called a public meeting to turn her neighbors against me. I'm going to go ahead and accept the invitation. Tuesday night, 7:00, Whitestone Creek Clubhouse. I parked my truck in the overflow lot 2 blocks away and walked in. I was wearing a clean button-down khakis and boots that had mud on them from checking my cattle that morning. I carried one thing, a single manila envelope, plain unmarked, tucked under my left arm. The clubhouse was a low beige building with a flagpole out front and a sign that said, "Welcome home, Whitestone." Inside, the main room was packed. Folding chairs had been set up in tight rows, every chair taken, people standing along the back wall. I counted roughly 110, maybe 120. Out of 96 households, she'd pulled most of the adults in the subdivision. A portable screen was set up at the front. A projected slide filled it in red and black. My own face, blown up from what looked like a security camera still, and below it the words, "Threat to our community." Karen was at the podium. She had a wooden gavel in her hand. She didn't own a gavel. The HOA didn't have the authority to hold the kind of meeting that required one. She'd bought it anyway. I took a seat in the back row aisle, next to a family with 2 kids. Nobody looked at me yet. Mrs. Ellison was in the 3rd row from the front, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes on the floor. She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. She knew I was there. Karen cleared her throat into the microphone and began. She spoke for 10 minutes. I didn't interrupt. I listened to every word. She called me an outsider land grabber. She said I was suing to take away the bridge. She said home values would collapse. She said children couldn't get to school. She said the board had evidence I had threatened HOA members, which she did not show. She said my cattle were a nuisance. She said my fence was an eyesore. She said the lien she had filed was completely legal and just the beginning. She proposed 2 motions. 1, authorize emergency HOA funds up to $20,000 to fight me in court. 2, declare me persona non grata in the neighborhood, barred from the clubhouse, the pool, and the community bridge. About halfway through her speech, some residents applauded. Others didn't. I watched the ones who didn't. 2 rows up. A man in a work shirt was looking down at his boots. A woman near the coffee table was slowly shaking her head at nothing. Mrs. Ellison hadn't looked up once. Karen finished. She raised the gavel. All in favor of motion 1. I raised my hand. She stopped, she saw me. For a moment, she didn't place me, eyes narrowing, searching, and then she did, and a small, delighted smile spread across her face. The same smile from the folding table, the same smile from my porch, the same smile she'd probably been practicing in a mirror for the last 3 days. Well, she adjusted the microphone. Look who decided to show up. Ladies and gentlemen, the trespasser himself, come on up. Mr. Holloway, come on up and defend yourself in front of your betters. Somebody in the middle of the room laughed nervously. Nobody else did. I stood up. I walked down the center aisle slowly, carrying the unmarked manila envelope. I did not look at Karen. I did not look at the projected slide of my own face. I looked at the stenographer, a woman in her 40s, with a machine set up on a folding table beside the podium, dutifully typing, and I nodded at her just once, so she'd know I saw her. I reached the front. I stood to the side of the podium. I did not take the microphone. I did not open the envelope. I turned and faced the room. Good evening. My name is Ray Holloway. I own the ranch on the other side of the bridge. I have not threatened anyone in this room. I have not sued anyone yet. I am here tonight because your board president posted my photograph on a public page with 1,200 followers and asked everyone in this neighborhood to show up to discuss me. The room was very quiet. Before I say anything else, I have exactly one question for this board and for this community. I would like everyone to hear the answer. I let the silence stretch, not for drama, to make sure the stenographer got it on the record. Can anyone here, Ms. Whitaker, any board member, any resident, show me the recorded easement or deed that grants this HOA the right to use the bridge at the entrance of your neighborhood? Not a memory, not a tradition, a recorded document filed with the county. Which one of you has seen it? Nobody moved. I waited 8 seconds, 10. Long enough for the stenographer's keys to catch up and then to fall silent. Karen laughed. It came out forced. Mr. Holloway, we don't need a document. That bridge has been ours for 15 years. It belongs to us. It's always belonged to us. It always will belong to us. 3 times. She said our bridge or belongs to us 3 times in one breath into a microphone in front of a stenographer she had hired in a meeting she had called on a Tuesday night in front of 100+ witnesses. I didn't smile. I didn't react. I turned to the stenographer. Ma'am, could you please read that back for the record? The stenographer looked at Karen. Karen looked at the stenographer. The stenographer looked down at her machine, scrolled up, and because that was literally her job, read it back, quote, "We don't need a document." That bridge has been ours for 15 years. It belongs to us. It's always belonged to us. It always will belong to us. End quote. Thank you, I said. I turned back to the room. For anyone who would like to know whether that statement is legally accurate, I'll be at county court Thursday morning at 9:00, room 2B. It's a public hearing on a lien that your board president filed against my home last week. Everyone in this room is welcome to attend, especially the ones who were told by this board in writing that they would be fined $500 for speaking to me. I saw 3 people turn and look at Mrs. Ellison. She lifted her head for the first time all night and looked back at them. She didn't look afraid. She looked calm. A man in the second row said audibly, "What?" Karen was already talking over me. "This is a private meeting. He has no right. This is harassment." I didn't respond to her. I spoke to the room. "I'm not going to take any more of your evening. I came tonight because I wanted every one of you to hear from me in person one thing. I am not closing the bridge. I am not charging anyone to use it. I am not keeping your children from school or your family from the hospital. Anyone who has told you otherwise is lying to you." The murmur that rippled through the back rows was the first real sound the crowd had made all night that wasn't Karen's voice. I walked back up the aisle toward the door. Halfway up, I stopped. I turned back to the podium. Karen was gripping the gavel with both hands now, white-knuckled. I spoke to her directly for the first time all evening. Quiet. No microphone. "That's a shame, Karen." I lifted the unmarked manila envelope slightly because I brought the deed. I walked out behind me. I heard one folding chair scrape back, then another, then half a dozen. By the time the clubhouse door swung shut behind me, I could hear raised voices, not Karen's residents. The first angry questions they had ever asked their own board out loud in public, about a bridge they had been terrified of for 15 years. I didn't stay to hear the rest. I walked the 2 blocks back to my truck. I got in. I set the unmarked manila envelope on the passenger seat. It was empty. I'd never had any intention of showing the deed tonight. The envelope was a prop, a bluff, designed to fit inside the rules Paula had given me. Don't show the deed. Don't engage. Don't gloat. Ask one question. Let her answer it. Mention the courthouse, leave. The real deed was still at the farmhouse, inside a locked drawer, certified and notarized and waiting for Thursday morning. I drove home. I didn't pour a whiskey this time. I sat at the kitchen table and looked at the folder on the counter. Whitestone Creek exhibits now thick enough to need a rubber band. Karen Whitaker had just, on the record, in front of a stenographer and 120 witnesses, told the world that a bridge she did not own had always belonged to her. I closed the folder. I went to bed. Thursday morning, County Courthouse Room 2B 9:00. I wore a navy suit my wife had bought me for her niece's wedding 8 years earlier. The jacket still fit. Paula Reyes met me at the steps with a rolling banker's box and the particular steady calm she'd spent 30 years building. In Dallas courtrooms, don't speak unless the judge addresses you. Don't react to her lawyer. Don't look at Karen. Look at the judge, understood. Room 2B was smaller than I'd expected. Wood paneling, 8 rows of public gallery, a center aisle. I took my seat at the plaintiff counterclaimant table next to Paula. Karen walked in 5 minutes before 9:00. She was wearing a charcoal blazer instead of the HOA polo. 3 board members followed her. The woman from the folding table, with the laminated sticker, a man I didn't recognize, and her son, scrubbed clean in a shirt and tie that didn't fit him. Their lawyer was a young man in a cheap suit who kept shuffling papers in the wrong order. Karen had hired the cheapest retainer she could find the day after I left the clubhouse. The public gallery filled up behind us. Paula leaned over. "Ray, you are going to want to see this when we break." I didn't turn around. Alderman was their front row. Mrs. Ellison was there, 3 rows behind him. The man from the second row at the clubhouse, who had said what he was there too. 11, maybe 12 Whitestone Creek residents. The woman with the stroller from the bridge. Deputy Morales, out of uniform, on his day off. The stenographer from Tuesday night, sitting in the gallery with her certified transcript in a folder on her lap. Judge Harlan entered at 9:00 exactly, mid-S, silver-haired, dry as old paper. The unimpressed look of a judge who had been watching HOA board presidents walk into his courtroom for 20 years. Be seated. Emergency hearing on lien. Whitestone Creek HOA versus Holloway. Along with counterclaim, counsel. Enter your appearances. Paula introduced yourself. The cheap suit lawyer fumbled his introduction twice. Ms. Reyes, your motion. Paula stood, Your Honor. 2 matters in sequence. First, motion to vacate the lien filed by the HOA against my client's property. Second, motion for preliminary injunction prohibiting further interference by the HOA with my client's land, and with a particular structure the HOA has been treating as its own. I'd like to move Exhibit A into the record. Proceed. Paula turned to the court tech. Overhead, please. The screen behind the bench came on. What appeared was not a paragraph, not a photograph, not a screenshot, a certified plat survey stamped by the county recorder. The boundary of 5,000 acres traced in red. A thin black line labeled Whitestone Creek Bridge. Concrete and steel, 48-foot span sitting clearly inside the red, 60 feet clear of the nearest property line. On both sides of the creek, Paula did not speak for a full 3 seconds. She let the room look. I heard the sound, and I will remember this sound for the rest of my life of Karen, Whitaker's 3 board members behind her, all of them inhaling at the same time. Somebody in the gallery whispered, "Oh my God." The cheap suit lawyer leaned back in his chair and stopped taking notes. Your Honors, the Whitestone Creek HOA has been using a bridge on my client's private property for 15 years. No recorded easement, no lease, no property tax paid by the HOA. My client's estate has paid that tax every year from 2009 forward. There is no legal basis under which this HOA holds any interest in that structure or the parcel it sits on. Judge Harlan looked at Karen's lawyer, counsel. Any dispute as to the plat? The cheap suit lawyer stood halfway up, sat back down, stood all the way up. Your Honor, we would like to request a recess to review counsel. Is the plat accurate? I have not had the opportunity. Did your client file this lien? She, yes, Your Honor. On what basis? The HOA has maintained. Maintenance is not ownership. Sit down. He sat down. Karen leaned forward and whispered something furious in his ear. He shook his head at her fast twice. She leaned back, and for the first time since I had met her, the smile was gone. Paula reached into the banker's box. Exhibit B, Your Honor. Certified County Tax Records 2009 and 9, to present showing the bridge parcel taxed continuously to my client's property. The HOA has paid nothing. Judge Harlan took the folder. He looked at the top page. He looked at Karen. He said nothing. He didn't have to. Exhibit C and D. Paula continued, address the HOA's internal and public claims. Exhibit C is the HOA's own recorded bylaws, 47 pages. Word searched. The word bridge does not appear. Exhibit D, a screenshot of the HOA public website captured 1 week ago, front page, describing the bridge as, quote, our community entrance. A man in the back row of the gallery coughed once, the way people cough when they're trying not to laugh. Exhibit E, the handwritten receipt for $75 paid by my client to Ms. Whitaker at a folding table on the bridge 3 weeks ago, written in her own hand, signed with her own initials. Karen's son behind her put his face in his hands. Exhibit F, my client's dash cam audio from that same morning. With the court's permission, 40 seconds granted. The clerk queued it up. The courtroom speakers filled with Karen Whitaker's voice, confident, sweet, scripted. 3 weeks old. Good morning, sir. I'm Karen Whitaker, president of the Whitestone Creek HOA. This bridge belongs to the community. I'll need $75 for a bridge use permit before I can let you through. A woman in the third row made a small, audible noise, half gasp, half laugh, and put her hand over her mouth. Exhibit G, the stenographic transcript from Tuesday night's HOA emergency meeting, certified by the stenographer who is in the gallery this morning of Ms. O.A. Whitaker publicly stating, quote, we don't need a document. That bridge has been ours for 15 years. It belongs to us. It's always belonged to us. It always will belong to us, end quote. The stenographer half lifted her hand from the gallery. The judge gave her a single courteous nod. Exhibit H, County Fire Marshal Report. HOA supervised burn, unpermitted crew, negligence finding. 3 acres of my client's pasture destroyed. Exhibit 1, the lien filed by this HOA against my client's home in the amount of $1,450, based on a fence color fine on it. Property the HOA has no jurisdiction over whatsoever. Paula closed the folder. Your Honor, we respectfully ask the court to vacate the lien, grant the preliminary injunction, and set trial on our counterclaims, trespass, slander of title defamation, unjust enrichment on 15 years of tolls, negligent property damage. She sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Harlan set his pen down. He looked at Karen for a long moment. Miss Whitaker, is any of this in dispute? Karen stood up without being recognized. Your Honor, it's always been our bridge. Everybody knows that. The previous owner never said anything. My father-in-law built it. We maintain it. We put gravel on the approaches every spring. That makes it ours. I don't care what some old piece of paper says. It's always been Miss Whitaker. Judge Harlan did not raise his voice. Always is not a legal instrument. Karen opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, sat down. In the gallery behind her, 2 board members quietly stood up, collected their coats, and walked out of the courtroom. They didn't look at her. The woman with the laminated sticker went first. The older board member followed her. Only her son stayed, still with his face in his hands. Mrs. Ellison, 3 rows back, was crying, not sobbing, just a quiet, steady leak down both cheeks that she wasn't bothering to wipe. Alderman reached across the aisle and handed her his handkerchief without looking at her. Judge Harlan picked up his pen. Preliminary ruling. The lien filed by Whitestone Creek, HOA, against the Holloway property is vacated as of this moment with prejudice. The HOA and its officers are enjoined from any further interference with the bridge, the Holloway property, or any resident's use of the bridge pending trial. Mr. Holloway may post private property notices on the structure at his discretion, effective immediately. Full trial on counterclaims set for the next available docket. He paused. Ms. Whitaker, I have been on this bench for 22 years. I will offer you a piece of advice you did not ask for and do not deserve. When you are using someone else's property, the correct legal term for that is not maintenance. It is trespass. Your counsel will explain the difference. He tapped his gavel. We're in recess. Karen did not stand up. She sat at the counsel table with both hands flat on the wood. I did stand up. I closed the folder on our table. I reached into the side pocket of the banker's box and took out one item, the laminated blue sticker that had been slapped on my windshield 3 weeks earlier. Whitestone Creek, resident lot 47. I'd kept it, of course I had. I walked over to Karen's chair. I set the sticker on the table in front of her, face up, so she could see it. I spoke quietly under the noise of the gallery standing up. You can keep this. I won't be needing it. I walked out. In the hallway, Mrs. Ellison was waiting for me. She hugged me hard the way a 74-year-old woman hugs someone when she's relieved and furious, and unburdened all at once. I could feel her shoulders shaking through the cardigan. Harold is at his appointment right now, she said into my shoulder. He'll be home by noon. He made it again. He's going to keep making it. Ma'am, Alderman came up behind her. Ray didn't even have to testify, not today. Maybe never. Maybe never. I looked down the hallway. The 2 board members who had walked out were standing by the vending machine arguing in whispers. The cheap suit lawyer was on his phone. Karen had not yet come out of room 2B. She didn't come out for another 20 minutes. By then, I was in my truck halfway home. 6 weeks after Thursday morning, the final ruling came down. Paula called me while I was fixing a leaking hose bib on the side of the barn. Ray, you ready for the numbers? Go. Full settlement. HOA owes you $380,000. That's 15 years of unjust enrichment on the tolls, 3 acres of burned pasture, the oak tree, the fence, the cut chain, the negligent burn, slander of title, and defamation. Lien formally voided on record. Attorney fees covered, $380,000, $380,000. Now, the part you're going to want to think about carefully. The judge has indicated he'll sign off on whatever easement arrangement you want to put on the record going forward. You own the bridge. You set the terms. You can keep it private. You can charge them $1 a year. You can fence it off tomorrow. Your choice. I wiped my hands on a shop rag. I looked out across the pasture toward the creek. Write it up this way, Paula. Recorded easement granted voluntarily by me in perpetuity to the residents of Whitestone Creek subdivision. No tolls, no HOA checkpoints, no gates. Residents cross freely 24 hours a day. Ambulance access guaranteed. The HOA, as a corporate entity, has no authority over the structure. They don't maintain it. They don't inspect it. They don't put a single sign on it. I maintain it at my cost. Paula was quiet for a moment. Ray, you're giving up a lot of leverage. I'm not doing this for leverage, Paula. I'm doing this for Harold Ellison. She drafted the easement that afternoon. I signed it on Monday. It was recorded with the county on Tuesday. By then, the rest of the neighborhood had already started happening without me. The HOA had to pay the settlement, and the only way to pay it was a special assessment on its members, $2,100 per household. 96 households due within 60 days. The notice went out on a Wednesday. By Friday, somebody had filed a public records request for the last 10 years of HOA dues disbursements. What that request turned up was not surprising to anyone who'd lived there for more than a year. Karen's son's landscaping company, an LLC that existed mostly on paper, operated out of his pickup, had been receiving the HOA's entire annual landscaping contract every year for 11 years. No bids, no competing quotes. Roughly $40,000 a year paid out of residents, dues to a company owned by the board president's immediate family. The county district attorney's office opened an investigation the following Monday. 2 weeks after that, the HOA held an emergency recall vote. I didn't go. I wasn't invited, and I wouldn't have attended if I had been. But Alderman texted me the tally from the parking lot at 10:00 that night. 71-8, she's out. New interim board sworn in. Allison nominated as president. Passed unanimously. A second text came in a minute later. Interim board's first motion. Officially rename the bridge on all HOA and county maps. Not Whitestone Community Bridge anymore. Plat name, the name the surveyor gave it 40 years ago. Holloway Crossing. Allison seconded it, passed. I sat on the porch for a while after that one. Holloway Crossing. It wasn't a name I had picked. It wasn't even a name I had known about. The original surveyor back in the 1980s had labeled it on the plat after the family who'd owned the land before the Dallas Trust, the Holloways. No relation to me, long gone. The county had let the name lapse. Karen's father-in-law had renamed it on informal signs. Nobody had ever corrected the record. Now, in a strange small way, a bridge I had accidentally bought had been given my name back by the neighborhood that had spent 15 years being taxed. Across it. I didn't know what to do with that feeling. So I did what I always did. I went out and worked. The first Tuesday morning after the recall vote, I drove my F350 across the bridge at 6:47 Habit. Same time I'd crossed it the first morning. No folding table, no orange barrier, no clipboard, no laminated sticker, no son in a hoodie. The gravel approaches had been cleaned up, the weeds trimmed back, the hand-painted plywood signs gone. A woman walking her dog on the Whitestone side waved at me. I waved back. 2 houses down from the bridge entrance, a for sale sign had gone up on a lawn the week after the ruling. Karen Whitaker's house. I drove past it slowly, the way you do when you see something you know you're going to see for a while. It sat on the market for 14 months. Nobody wants to buy into the neighborhood that lost the bridge lawsuit. Realtors called it a story property. She dropped the price 3 times. Eventually, it sold to a young couple who'd moved in from out of state and didn't know the history. By then, Karen had already moved 2 counties over to a rental and had taken the embroidered HOA polo with her. The HOA security hoodie, Alderman told me months later, had been left in a Goodwill bin outside the clubhouse on the day she left. Life on the ranch settled into something I hadn't had in a long time. I finished the farmhouse. I put a standing seam metal roof on it that will still be there when my grandchildren's grandchildren have stopped caring. I ran 60 head of cattle, a small cow-calf operation, Black Angus. Nothing fancy. I hired a kid from Cedar Hollow to help me on weekends. I bought the dog I'd been thinking about that afternoon at the grocery store. I named him Morales, after the deputy, and told the deputy as much over coffee one morning, and he laughed for a long time. Aldermen started coming over for coffee most Sundays. We'd sit on the porch, 2 old men with hot mugs, watching the pasture and not saying much, which is the highest form of friendship I know. Harold Ellison never missed another dialysis appointment. Mrs. Ellison made me chicken and rice once a month for a year. She stopped eventually when I finally convinced her that she didn't owe me anything, that I had done what any decent person would do, that the chicken was starting to make me feel guilty. She still waved at me every time I crossed the bridge. I posted one sign on the bridge. It was small, wooden, hand-carved by aldermen, set on a cedar post at the south end of the span. It said 3 words and nothing else. Private property. You're welcome. On the north side of the barn, in a simple black frame, I hung one thing: the laminated blue sticker. Whitestone Creek, Resident Lot 47. The one Karen's friend had slapped on my windshield 3 weeks into my new life. On a bridge she didn't own, in a subdivision I didn't live in, on behalf of an authority she did not hold. Next to it I hung my discharge papers from the United States Army Corps of Engineers. 30 years, contracts and real estate division. The career that had taught me to read every page of every document before I signed anything. And it taught me one sentence I'd heard my first week and never forgotten. Always read the survey. I looked at both frames a lot that first winter. The sticker on the left, the discharge on the right. A laminated piece of plastic that had once been a threat, hanging next to a piece of paper that had been, in a quiet way, I hadn't understood until I needed it. The reason the threat hadn't worked. Sometimes my niece would visit and ask me why I kept the sticker thing, and I'd tell her the story the short way, the way you tell a child a story, leaving out the lane and the fire and the 911 call and the Facebook post and the 74-year-old woman shaking on my porch. A woman once tried to charge me $75 to cross a bridge I'd say. Turned out I owned the bridge, and she'd laugh every time, the way children laugh when a story has the clean shape of a story. But the last line, the line I never said out loud to her, was the one I said to myself, quietly standing in the barn on winter mornings, looking at the 2 frames side by side. She tried to make me pay a toll on her bridge. Turned out, she'd been crossing mine her whole life.